You'll have seen probably on the television or read it in the newspapers that commentator after commentator, all the other politicians, Tory, Liberal, Labour, saying, oh, well, no one foresaw this. We couldn't have foreseen this. What a nonsense. First of all, every proper nationalist has been saying for decades that the end result of a system based on unrepayable debt is a financial disaster. That's the first thing. So we've said it all along. But more specifically, those of you who saw me speak about a year ago in the Black Country, I said precisely that this is it now, that this is going to get really serious. And I said, if you're lucky enough, for instance, to be sitting on a house and thinking about selling it, sell it. If you're thinking about buying a house, whatever you do, don't buy it. Sit on the money and wait for the prices to drop through the floor, because we're at this tipping point and it's almost all over. Those decades, in fact, of consumer prosperity, when people could turn away and think, country's problems aren't my problem, I'm all right, Jack. I said a year ago that was coming to an end. And then 6 months ago in Identity, I wrote, and that's the start of the article, I simply said, this is it. In other words, this is the financial crisis that a lot of people have felt was coming and we've known was coming. And this really is here. And every day now, you know, it's now not even major news when the second biggest bank in Germany or the third biggest bank in America collapses. You know, Northern Rock was a huge story, wasn't it? You know, there's institutions, old and massively powerful financial institutions, just crumbling ninepins all over the world now, and it's almost not a story anymore, not one of them. It's just the fact it's had so many of them. And I can tell you it's going to get much, much worse. Or, if you're an ordinary Brit, like most of us are, actually, for now, much more interesting, because all these politicians are saying, you know, we've got to look after the people's savings, and we've got to bail out all these savers, we've got to help ordinary people. How many ordinary people do you know who've actually got savings? I don't know any ordinary person who's got savings, because how can you have savings when for years you're scrimping along when the wages just about, if you're lucky, if there's two of you in the household working, the wages just about cover all the essential costs, and then you have to go to the grandparents when the kids have got holes in their shoes, which is pretty much where most people are. And the idea, in fact, they've got to bail out savers to help ordinary people in this country, it's not really true, is it? So most people have been watching the first stage of the financial crisis really as disinterested spectators. So today, the FTSE 100, the share index, has had the biggest drop ever in one day, 8%. And they're talking about billions and billions of pounds wiped off the value of British industry, and you know, everyone, all the savers, all the people owning shares, you know, all these people are hit. So for a show of hands, how many people in this room own shares? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've got 6 shareholders, less than 10%. And I would guess that's pretty common anywhere you go throughout this country. In fact, in a place, if this was a working men's club without the smattering of the various people that come with a BNP meeting, not one person will put their hands up. Because most people don't have shares, they don't have savings. Even the people who had shares when their building societies were demutualised, i.e. ripped off and turned into short-term profit centres for big business, where the little people in the end were inevitably going to get screwed. Even the people who had those shares have had to sell them, bit by bit, over the last couple of years. Bit of a financial crisis, washing machines broken down, sell a few more shares. Remember, you know, tell Sid to buy shares in British Gas. That was all a temporary hoax to get that capital in the hands of ordinary little people, so it would all in the end get snaffled up, snorted up by the banksters, which is what's going on now. And now they're in trouble. See how the tune has changed. That for the last 30 years, throughout the Black Country, in fact anywhere in Britain where there's manufacturing industry, company after company, factory after factory, industry after industry, community after community have gone to the wall. And every time it's happened, first the Tories and more recently the new Tories in the guise of Blair and co. have said, oh, we mustn't buck the markets. You can't buck the markets. You can't interfere with the markets. If they're not competitive, they must go to the wall. And what it does to the community and to families, not our job, not for politicians to interfere. You know, the kids get into smack. The dads, the granddads who've been forced to retire early get heart disease and cancer. You know, because unemployment kills people. Simple as that. Bit by bit, it kills them. So it didn't matter, did it? No, working class people. Close it down, shut it. Not enough profit in it. The moment the banks are in trouble, oh no, we can't have that. They're too big to fail, they're too important to fail. They give too much money to the Labour Party. They give too much money to the Tory Party to be allowed to fail, so they've got to be bailed out. So who do they turn to? Us. The mug taxpayers who've been screwed by the banks for decades. You ever been £2 overdrawn? £3 over your overdraft limit? Oh yes, £15 for writing to you, £25 for being overdrawn for 1 or 2 days, because the banking system, it's all instantaneous, but you pay money in, and they'll take 3 or 4 days to clear, just like they did in Victorian times, because they know that by doing that, it means that people lose count, they miss a day, they forget that Sunday wasn't a working bank day and so on, so they've issued a cheque before it's cleared, so back in the red, back in the overdraft, another excuse to screw them. I think we should all write to the banks now saying, oh, you're overdrawn, are you? Well, very sorry, let's have some money. Sadly, of course, it's not like that yet. Because when you've got a party political system run by people who are in fact just glove puppets of the banksters, they're going to do nothing to get in the way of the bank's profits. They're going to do nothing other than bail them out at our expense. And we've now got, you've already seen it with Northern Rock and the others, you see it shaping up more and more. There's going to be more taxpayer bailouts where our money is used to help sort out the bank's problems. Now, what's the bank's key problem? They persuaded someone, or rather, because they made it so easy to borrow money on houses, there was a time not long ago when the maximum you could get was 3 times your annual wage. And then it went up to 3.5 times, 4 times, 5 times. And there was a time, once upon a time, when you had to take 10% deposit to buy a house. And then it crept up to 95%, 100%. And then they give you a 110% mortgage, 125% mortgage on your house. In other words, if your house is worth 100,000, they'd lend you 125,000 when you bought it. And because they did that, with this unbelievable stupidity and short-termist greed, property prices naturally went up through the roof, with the result of people just having to fulfil the standard human need and human right of a roof over their and their children's heads, had no choice but to borrow way, way above what they can actually afford, or to lie about what they're earning just to get that roof over their kids' heads. And now, of course, it's all unravelling, and prices are dropping and people can't make the payments, so the banks are going to lose out, and the government is there, and the Tories are saying, you've got to give more, you know. The Lib Dems are saying, you've got to give more, so they're all queuing up to take our money to give it to the people caught in this crisis, the banks, they say. But no one suggested, looking at the people who are right now in despair over the fact they can't any longer afford their exorbitant mortgage payments, over the fact they're going to lose their homes, should they be bailed out? I would have thought that if it's right to bail out the banks for the stupidity and the greed that with which they've run the system, then it's right to bail out the poor silly buggers who've been caught up in it. Or the other way around, if it's not right to help someone who can no longer afford their mortgage, and some of them were greedy and stupid too, and some of them just did it because they had to, but if it's not right to help out the people who are going to lose their homes, then it sure as hell is not right to give a penny in taxpayers' money to the banksters who created the mess in the first place. So I think we're all agreed. I think everyone in the country, actually, except the politicians and the bankers who pay them, I think we're all actually agreed that this monstrous bailout is wrong. It shouldn't happen anyway. All the more so because it's not really a bailout. It's a theft of our taxes for them. It's not even there to prop up the banks, because it's all collapsed anyway. It's not there to help ordinary people, because every shareholder in every one of these collapsing banks and institutions, they get wiped out. They don't get a penny. So the ordinary little people, or you think, well, I haven't got shares, so